What you are hearing is the inevitable sound of change happening to this frequency.
On today's show, we are going to have Sean Witzman. Sean is a friend of a mutual friend of a network that broadcasts a show, and he was in Washington, D.C. for the Million MAGA March. The one where the mainstream media is telling you a couple of thousand people were there. We're talking about close to 1 million if you look at Newsmax and other truthful reporting agencies. And the footage that he has, he's going to share with us exclusively right here on PC Radio. You don't want to miss that. Where the police were actually tied up, supporting or defending Antifa and Black Lives Matter people who had assaulted people. These people had assaulted elderly people and women, and then when retaliation was imminent, the cops stood there and defended those people that were doing that damage. Not at any fault of the police on the beat, okay? This is at no fault to the street cops. We understand the pressure that you're under. We know that the political sphere has completely overridden your command staff, and we know that you are just fighting to hold on to your career and everything that you worked for and your retirement and everything that you've invested into that service that you had a calling to do. We appreciate that, and we stand by you. We back the blue in every way that we can. We support the police, including even the coffee that we drink, okay? Because every single dollar that is spent at Law Dog Coffee, a portion of those dollars go to the Wounded Blue, which is an organization that has documented assisting over 6,000 families of catastrophically wounded officers. And so get yourself the coffee. It's good coffee. It tastes good, and it goes to a great cause. Law Dog Coffee, PCRadio.com, Law Dog Coffee, PCRadio.com, or go to lawdogcoffee.com and use the code PCRadio for 10% off. Richard, here we go.
Attention, liberal snowflakes. Caught you listening again.
Well, you happen to have caught me in a moment of self-pleasure.
Stewie and Richie. The patriotically correct radio show is on the Warrior Radio Network.
Here we are, back with you again as usual, and make sure to get over to our new store. Very, very important that you get over there.
Yeah, the new Antifa shirt is sweet, man.
Yeah, we love Antifa shirts. If you're noticing, guy in a Pittsburgh hat down there in the bottom of the screen, that is Sean Witzman. We're going to get to him momentarily. He was in Washington, D.C. For the Million MAGA March. That was pretty interesting stuff. We've got some footage that you took out there, Sean, and just in a quick word here, I mean, just what was the overall experience like at this thing?
It's fantastic.
Okay, and that was a quick word. All right.
Yeah.
The media-pronounced president-elect has yet to say a word about the inconsistencies at polling places, the unexplained and highly suspicious stop to the counting of ballots, the 4 a.m. ballot drops of over 100,000, which all went for Biden, or the overall reasonable and widespread allegations of a stolen and fraudulent election. He isn't saying anything. The reason is because they're guilty. We've highlighted the audience sizes at campaign events hosted by each candidate, the boat parades, the vehicle flag lines, and we're not going to continue to rehash this. You know the numbers. You know about the prolific support and overwhelming grassroots movements for the president, and the physical evidence of overwhelming support for Donald Trump is clear to even the most idiotic of imbeciles. The former vice president has yet to denounce the violent and racist actions of Black Lives Matter Incorporated, or Antifa, despite the horrific assaults that occurred in the nation's capital during the Million MAGA March over this past weekend. Hundreds of the most vulnerable attendees, including primarily elderly people and women, went without police response as officers were more occupied with protecting the very people responsible for the carnage. That's right. Cops were standing in front of Antifa terrorists, protecting them from patriots who were rightfully pissed off after witnessing the brutal attacks on the week. Biden hasn't said anything about any of it. Despite the announcement of vaccines with 90 to 95% effectiveness by two different drug makers, what Biden has addressed are the lockdowns everyone anticipated, making the threats of a cold and dark winter Biden promised during the last presidential debate a reality. Democratically controlled strongholds have already started falling in line with the new radical totalitarian regime in states like Oregon, where gatherings are limited to 6 people in your home. And the governor there has said that violators may face fines and jail time for noncompliance. That's right. The state has an official announcement that they released yesterday. They made it to Oregon residents when they said those who fail to comply with the newly imposed tightened restrictions could face a $1,250 fine or up to a month in jail. New Jersey has joined in the Thanksgiving holiday restrictions and says, to obviously no surprise to anyone, that California also, 41 of their counties are now in the most restrictive tier due to the claims of a rise in COVID-19 cases. I would imagine that Nancy Pelosi will be the exception if she has to have a hairdo. In the more restrictive states like New Mexico, where Sean is at, retail stores and malls are closed, along with bars and restaurants, hair salons, tattoo parlors, massage parlors, nail salons, barbershops, casinos, theaters, arcades, aquariums, concert venues, amusement parks, dance clubs, state museums, and historical sites, golf courses, pools, zoos, and state parks. The United States economy is done. Close up your business, folks, and go home. Shut down your aspirations for a successful small company, the introduction of a new invention, or the marketing of your newly developed product for the free market. It's gone. Next comes the foreclosure, then the divorce. Massive increases in child abuse cases and unprecedented accounts of suicides will consume and overtake America within weeks, and the United States will absolutely never recover. The restrictions on free speech continue to tighten as your opinions and questions are removed from social media feeds by big tech giants like Facebook and Twitter, making it impossible for you to keep in touch with your loved ones in the absence of physical and in-person meetings due to COVID restrictions. Anything that opposes or even remotely calls into question the legitimacy of the presidential election will be banned and could get you permanently removed from the only platforms you have remaining that keep you in touch with the outside world. After Biden has successfully removed the hopes of a Thanksgiving meal with your loved ones, shut down your habitual daily visit to mom in her extended care living facility, and taken away any hope your kids may have of interaction with their peers, sports teams, or clubs, he will come for more. The radical regime filled with power-hungry and money-hungry progressives will come right after your guns with Beto O'Rourke at the helm as Biden's gun czar. Amendment 2 is in place so that Americans can protect themselves from a tyrannical government, and tyranny has arrived. We've seen the evidence of irregularities in this stolen election, and it's going to be left to real patriots to take a stand and proclaim that these radical fascist, self-proclaimed democratic, socialist, progressive lunatics will not steal this country for whose freedom has been gained by the spilling of blood of brave men and women that have fought so ferociously to secure the individual liberties that we all enjoy. That's it. It's a tremendously horrible, horrific time that we are seeing in America right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stress to you enough. If you are a true patriot, which you all are, I am calling on you right now. Richard, Sean, you've done some things. You have. Sean, you were there. You were in Washington. Richard, you have fought for this country. Patriots are going to have to stand up. There is absolutely no question in my mind. I'm not calling for a violent attack here, but I am saying to get ready for violence. Seriously. Because there's absolutely no way to divide it. There's no way to prevent it. When people are so passionate and so prolifically, what's the word, Richard? When we're so polarized, and everybody's so passionate about their thing, whether it's this Black Lives Matter Incorporated racist organization that's for profit. We're going to get to Sidney Powell as well in the second half.
Super passionate about all their movement, their specific organization, their specific idea. And what we've lost, in my opinion, is the ability to have a conversation. You know, if Stu, you were, let's say you're a Black Lives Matter guy, and Sean, you're an Antifa guy, and I'm a, God knows who, I'm a Black Panther. Right. We've lost the ability to have a conversation, the three of us, even though we have completely different views and respect each other.
In Washington, D.C., during the Million Mega March,
that's the thing.
Sean was.
There is no respect.
Right.
There is no respect from the other side. I'm tired of sitting here and pretending that there is. There's none.
Yeah.
They don't respect anything about anyone else's choices, anyone else's decisions. And we've sat there and allowed them to just carry on and do whatever they want. And it has to stop.
Let's take a look at some of the footage that you got here when you were there. This is part one of a part two deal. There was a guy that had a booth or a table, right? And he had like MAGA stuff there. He also had Black Lives Matter stuff, right? I mean, the guy was just trying to earn some money.
Hawk his wares, make some money. Yeah.
Here's
all he was trying to do.
He was then attacked, correct, by Antifa.
Yeah.
Is that right? And they took away his merchandise and later burned it in the street. You caught up with him. It's a little bit difficult to hear, but let's take a look.
Sure. It's lit.
I grew up in these cops on DC don't why are you blocking it?
Brother, man, I got a live, man.
Yeah.
What happened?
We all care about you. Yeah.
So I came down here when I saw the crowd coming up. I felt like someone was going to hurt. So I want to be here. I thought the cops were going to stop. So I came out. They started burning.
Why do you destroy stuff? Why do you destroy stuff?
So I come up to them saying, hey, no, stop that shit.
Why are you blocking it?
I get hit something. I get killed on the ground.
Walk
I
away.
get my pockets ran through. I'm trying to get my phone. I get everything taken.
He didn't ask you to do it.
Only thing I got left.
He didn't ask you to block it for him.
I'm trying to help him out. That's my friend. That's the only thing I got.
It's a little bit difficult to hear what he's actually saying, but tell us what he said.
I mean, long story short, they came down there, these guys, you know, and they always attack when someone's by themselves, when there's not a group around, when there's nobody who's, you know, strong. They just pick on whatever they perceive to be weak, whatever we perceive to be weak. So they flip this guy's table. You know, he's by himself, and then they drag his stuff out into Freedom Plaza where everybody had gathered hours earlier.
Who's they?
Oh, Antifa.
Okay, just want to be clear.
Whatever we want to call them, you know.
Well, what are they calling themselves? I mean, I guess.
Well, they call themselves Antifa. They call themselves BLM.
All right.
I mean, what do we want to say?
Yeah, terrorists.
They call themselves Marxists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're the real fascists. And then so then these people came back. Right? And you caught that on film as well.
Sure. When
these people came back. And I just want to say, if you're listening to the program and you have kids in the car or near the device that you're watching it on, if you're watching on TV or on your phone or your tablet, computer, there's some language here. So, you know, kids, beware. Here we go.
Look, we got like 25 just rolled up. I'm going to stay here now. All right? Someone going to hold me?
We got everything taken from me.
I was like, try to help you out, man. Come here. Nobody moving me. Like, I know. So you guys got a fist fight? Yeah, you going to try and move me? I didn't think so.
I don't want that.
Don't fucking touch me, all right? Don't fucking stop. All right, you motherfucker. All right?
Hey, man, chill.
wanna fuck with me?
Chill, man. Chill.
I didn't touch you.
All right, you touched me as assault. All right, you flipped my table. You tried to rip my flags off. Y'all need to go. Y'all need to go right now. Y'all need to go right the fuck now.
You got a fucking corkscrew up your ass.
This ain't the time. Y'all need to go.
All right, I'll do it right now.
Y'all,
All right?
you flipped my motherfucking table.
I didn't Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
So a couple of things here that strike me as interesting when I'm watching this footage. First of all, it looked like there was a member of Team Trump there that was trying to kind of console the guy and say, "Hey, we care about you." Was that an official member from Trump's team?
I can't say.
He was definitely wearing the.
But I just know that. But that was the mood of the whole crowd the whole time. I mean, you got to understand that all during the day and everything else, you had, all different races, just different attitudes. I mean, I'm not what you would call a classic MAGA supporter at all, by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I was there, and I had friends that had come down from Connecticut that are also kind of old school punk rock types. They were there. So there's just a mood. And of course, they want to help this guy in whatever way they can. He just had his stuff robbed. Right. But that's the difference. That's the difference right there. You want to help. And it was even, and it was even like, my other buddy, Vladimir, who was there with me, and he's over there, trying to tell the Antifa guys to just go home before they get their heads beaten into the curb. Yeah.
Who was going to shove a corkscrew up somebody's ass? Was that the Antifa
I'm
threat?
Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the other guy we kind of heard there saying that. There's a lot of bravado, but it's legitimate at that point too. I mean, nobody's going to shy away from the violence when they're that keyed up.
I want to talk to you about this because you were there to firsthand witness the police response or the lack thereof. When somebody like an elderly person or a Trump supporter or a All Lives Matter person or a Blue Lives Matter person, somebody that's typically on the side of Donald Trump or freedom, I guess, individual liberties, America first, right? When one of those people, the most vulnerable, was being attacked, where were the police?
Well, they'd jump right on anybody who came to defend that. I mean, they just wouldn't do anything for those people. And it goes right back to the guy who'd had his stuff flipped, where you had a line of police right there at Freedom Plaza, basically protecting Antifa while they burned his stuff.
These are the people that Antifa is calling to defund. These are the people that Antifa wants to get rid of. And because of weak command staffs that have been overrun by political nonsense and radical liberalism, the police are there to defend these pussies. By the way, the t-shirt and the sweatshirt, the hoodie, all of those things that you can get in the store right now, ISIS for pussies. That's Antifa, right? They're terrorists.
And I don't mean to knock on the DC police.
No, not at all. It's not the fault of the street cop, right?
Talking to them, and they say things like, "Well, that's above my pay grade. Yeah, this is weird. Yeah, I don't like this." And I'm kind of left wondering, when are you guys going to just not comply? Which goes back to everything that we talk about with lockdowns and everything else. We talk about that when you have to not comply.
Yeah, we talk about that often on this show, especially on Fridays with Joe the Cop, about eventually the cops are going to stop doing what they're told because it doesn't make any sense, right? Like as a police officer, I would have to think that myself, if some guy is getting his property burned and stolen and destroyed and all this other stuff, it would be my instinct, I think, to defend him and to help him out.
It's criminal damage to property. It's happening right in front of you.
Are put in jail or make them go away or whatever. But the problem is when they do that, now they're racist and now they're this and now they're that, and they're all over the media and their lives are over and they're done. They're scared of being ostracized and losing everything they've worked for.
They're scared of being canceled, right? As part of the cancel culture, even the police can be canceled, one officer at a time. And the goal here is to cancel the entire law enforcement system, trash it, and move to a one world order system with a global police department, basically. It's happening on my MacBook. Google is no longer there. When I go to try to Google something, I now get some weird thing, and I go to the extensions, and it asks me if I want to convert my primary language to Chinese. Seriously. This is going on. I mean, pay attention, people. This is absolutely here. I mean, socialism, communism, fascism, totalitarianism, whatever you want to label it, is here, and our freedom is seriously hanging in the balance. Now, there was another thing that you sent me here, and I want this is kind of funny. I want you to explain it. It's funny, but it's not. I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to have you explain it. And again, I just want to caution about some language here. So I believe it was actually you, Sean, that used some language, but hold on.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like
People come out sometimes.
we haven't seen a large scale right-wing thing at all.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're with it. Come on. Come on.
Go this way, guys. We're gonna bang left. Way down this way.
Yeah, we. Wait, what? Hey, man, which branch of the NSA do you work for? Huh?
None?
Yeah, calm the down, dude. You fucking heard it.
Thank you, intern boy, for taking care of the language. I didn't realize that you had done that. Who is this guy, and why did you assume that he was with the NSA?
He's well, that was just me on the fly saying what I thought he was, which, I guess we could come up with a term like bricklayer, maybe.
All right.
He didn't look like he belonged there, and he was inciting violence against women, and he was wearing a Trump shirt, and it just seemed fishy to me.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem to fit.
Yeah,
that's why I went up and said, which branch of the NSA are you with? And I told him to calm down.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, why do you think it would be that somebody inside of our government, and I want your opinion, I have mine, would be out there as an imposter, Trump supporter, inciting and causing violence or potentially blood to be spilled in the streets? Why do you suppose, in your opinion, would that be taking place?
I could come up with a couple of different ideas. I think the obvious one is that they want to destroy any sort of, peace that might be happening at these things. Mm-hmm. I mean, in that situation, it was a little different. It was bizarre where I had just walked up on a self-proclaimed member of the press. And I think we all know that line has been blurred throughout all of these demonstrations throughout this year.
Yeah.
And it was weird where that guy was walking along, and then this other guy was over there doing what he was doing. I mean, they could have worked for anybody, but it just didn't seem right. He didn't seem like he fit in with the crowd. And then he's over there calling for violence. The reasons why? To destroy any legitimacy associated with any of it, of course.
Yeah.
If you can make something really horrible happen, and then CNN can come in and report on it, and say, oh, this woman was viciously attacked by MAGA-hatted monsters, then it destroys that legitimacy, especially in a situation where we were corralled and almost forced to march into BLM Plaza on 16th Street, north of the White House. And, you had to keep it legitimate at some point. I mean,
how were you corralled, and who was doing the corralling?
The police. So the reason why I got involved in that particular march, it's not like any of this stuff was organized particularly, or like there were tweets going out or anything. It was just literally happening on the street every hour. I was trying to go back to my hotel. I was not allowed to go back to my hotel. I was not allowed to go back to my hotel for reasons that don't make any sense. There was one woman who was screaming and yelling, and then there was a police line. And then there were people kind of standing there, and it made no sense. So then you get pushed down another street, and it's like you kept getting pushed, from where I was at that time to the west towards the White House and towards BLM Plaza. And so at some point, I think people just had it, and they said, we're going to go in and we're going to clean all this up, which is, kind of what the march was doing at that point. It was just moving through that area. And, you had different members of BLM Antifa kind of running away, picking little skirmishes along the way, and just being generally, my friend used the term, they're jackals.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Are they really this was all during the day, or was this after
this was
night
all
fell?
at night, and it was happening during the day as well. I mean, early on during the rally, before a lot of the speakers started coming up in Freedom Plaza, there was a push down 14th Street by Antifa trying to cause problems. Proud Boys went back up that street, pushed back, kind of ran them out, and that was kind of the whole time. throughout the crowd. But the crowd was spilling, for at least 10 blocks. It was insanely huge. I mean, the estimates that I saw initially were, 250,000 now. And I know Newsmax and InfoWars both are coming out and saying there were over 1 million, which, is conceivable, just based off the size. So, I mean, there was skirmishes everywhere, and it just depended on where you were at any given time, what you were going to see.
Fox News reported a couple thousand people.
Fox News is...
I'm sure they're getting the information from their brothers over at CNN. I want to take a look at a little bit more of this footage for the people that are viewing our show, because this is absolutely interesting. This is a guy, a black dude with a bike, and we're just going to watch him, and then we're going to get your input on this.
White man business. I don't give a fuck about it. Pull it down. Fuck the government on Black Lives Matter. Pull that shit down. Pull all this shit up. Pull all this shit up. Pull all that shit down. Yeah. You can take that shit down too, because you don't like them bitch ass niggas. That's the government trouble. That's the government company. They don't speak for us. I'm from the city. Fuck that entity. Fuck that entity. Fuck that entity. Put that shit down. Y'all doing us a favor. No, that's that shit. Leave. I don't got nothing against you. Oh, shot!
All right, so what I'm seeing here is I got a black guy with a bike, and he's yelling, tear that shit down, right? That effing shit, tear it down. And he's talking about what?
He's talking about Black Lives Matter signs and just everything all over the place.
Yeah, and there was one on a building there, and somebody then was inspired probably by him chanting and yelling and calling for the tearing down of the sign, and she went to go tear it down. She was met with immediate police response and physically dragged from the sign, preventing her to tear it down. Where were these police when monuments and statues of our nation's history were being torn down? Where were these police when Trump flags were being stolen from a guy trying to make a buck and sell them, and then later burned in the street? This is unprecedented. I mean, really, are we looking at a victory here, in your opinion, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a victory. Everyone felt like there was victory on the streets that night because they were quiet. And the other reality is that there were people who live in the city coming up to everyone involved and thanking us, even homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had homeless people telling me how they've just been terrorized for months and nobody does anything to stop it. And we call it a victory, but the problem is, and what the right doesn't get, in my opinion, is that you can't just show up for a day and leave. There has to be sustained pressure put on all of these points, because Sunday rolls around, all the MAGA people go home, go back to their jobs. I'm guilty of it as well, obviously. But as long as that's happening, you're not ever going to be able to hold that ground that you just gained. It's like you're on the battlefield and you win a battle and then you just abandon the battlefield. And then the remnants of the enemy trickle back in and continue to do what they're doing.
I think that's a great way to wrap this up. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate your footage and for you coming on here to give us a firsthand account. Honest reporting. That's what we do. We're in search of the truth. The relentless truth seekers appreciate you. Coming back in the second half, we're going to have information. More serious drops of information from Sidney Powell. You will not believe this. Do not miss it. More PC Radio right after this. My name is Stu. That's Richard. For Sean Witzman, hang out with us. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. Absolutely unbelievable stuff that we saw there from Sean Witzman, and thank you, Sean, for the footage and for sharing it with our PC audience exclusively. Again, we apologize for some of the language on there, but you know what? This is what's happening in the streets of America. Okay, things are being stolen, things are being burned, people are getting robbed probably for everything, including their jewelry, which brings me to the point here. I want to talk about Johnson Jewelers because they pay us to, and because we actually do business with Johnson Jewelers personally. Okay, I've had rings made there. Richard, you've got a custom Johnson watch. You've got a custom Johnson ring that you wear. No other person, nan one, will ever be wearing the same jewelry that you are because it was custom made. Quality stuff, custom made just for you, anywhere from in the world. You can just log online, johnsonjewelers.com, send them an email, have a few phone calls, tell them exactly what it is that you want. You'll never, ever go anywhere else, I promise you, once you have dealt with the great people at Johnson Jewelers. They are real people like you and I. They're not a huge conglomerate like all these other jewelry companies that have these blood diamonds and all this other nonsense, okay? Johnson Jewelers has the finest of diamonds. They also buy gold, and I think they buy diamonds as well. And then they make custom things. I mean, literally everything in their case in Woodbury, Minnesota is custom made, and it's beautiful. Everything there. Visit them online, johnsonjewelers.com. Johnsonjewelers.com. That is johnsonjewelers.com.
PC Radio.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Joe, it's time to go, go, go. You're just so status quo. Both friend and foe know you're a no-go, Joe.
Come on, man.
PC Radio Show with Stu and Rich.
Mojo 50 Radio, that is the iHeart radio station that we are on, broadcasting to close to 2 million people every single day. And we are on the OpsLens app. Make sure that you go download that. OpsLens also on their Facebook page, on our own Facebook page, on many different Facebook pages that we're broadcasting now to over like 300,000 people we're reaching on Facebook, as long as they continue to let us do this, Richard. It's quite the honor to have such a huge platform with you every day.
Well, I mean, whoever would have thought, man? Sit down with Mr. Rocky Stucci, and all of a sudden here we are. It is quite an honor. I agree.
The honor actually that I take is that, we are just echoing the sentiments of millions, tens of millions, 72 at least million people who are taking a look at everything that is going on right now and saying, how in the hell can we even be moving towards certifying this election? How can the Electoral College take a look at what's going on? How can a Supreme Court or any federal judge take a look at what's going on and not say, whoa, hold on just a second here? Because we're not just talking about widespread voter fraud or voter interference anymore. We are talking about a completely stolen, fraudulent election, period, because of this Dominion software and this Smartmatic stuff that Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell are bringing to the forefront. And we watched some things with Sidney Powell just yesterday when she was appearing on Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo on the Fox Business Network. Why isn't Fox News, Richard, or CNN or MSNBC picking up this story and running with it?
Well, I think your guess is as good as mine, and I would venture to say it is because it doesn't fit the narrative of the powers that be,
the socialists,
where they get their money and where they're getting their biggest support. Now that Trump they're making it look like Trump is on his way out. It's not fashionable anymore. You'll notice on the Fox News website, which I have up every day while we're doing the show, the little electoral map is gone and the races are gone, the Senate races, all those things. It's all gone from the front page now.
Just moving on.
I'm hoping it's because now they're starting to see this evidence that this is all fraudulent. Now they don't want to be reporting on it.
Well, I think what's happening here is, they're moving on from this. And if you watch even Republicans from our Senate and from the House, these congressmen are saying basically we need to start this transition, this transition team, that transition team, peaceful transition, all of this bullshit, when in fact there was never a peaceful transition. Trump is still going through a less than peaceful transition from when he defeated miserably Hillary Clinton in 2016 when the Obama administration illegally spied on him. And you heard Sabrina D'Souza on the show yesterday say, it's been widely referred to as Spygate, she's a former intel officer for the CIA, and she said, I'm going to call it Spygate now as well, giving legitimacy to the fact that we all know the president was illegally spied on. Why Obama is not in jail or being tried for treason, I don't understand that. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It's there. We know that this happened. So why are these people just getting away with this?
Yeah, that would be my question. My question would be to all these powers that be is, like I was telling you off the air, if there was some claim that Donald Trump was at his golf course yesterday and grabbed the beer cart girl by the vagina, it would be worldwide front page top story news.
Of course it would.
But all these things come out, and it's no big deal. And why?
Can you imagine if Eric Trump,
the powers that be don't do anything about it?
Yeah. Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr. had a laptop with pornographic photographs of themselves with minor children. If Eric Trump was seen smoking a meth bubble, exactly. If Donald Trump Jr. was colluding with Ukraine and China and running around the world collecting billions or millions or tens of millions of dollars, whatever the amount is, if he was getting paid by Burisma, an energy company in Ukraine with no knowledge of the Ukraine and no knowledge of energy, these things would be front page news. You can't fool us anymore. The media is trying to pull the wool over our eyes, and the sheep are following right along with this. Yeah. I would hope that there are more like-minded people like us and the listeners of this show, more patriots in this country than there are these other people, because at the end of the day, despite their willingness or their desire to go along with, America, for example, they're going to have to. They're going to have to. And ironically, we, the Patriots, are going to be the ones that are saving them from themselves. You understand that? Like, you want this abolishment or defunding of law enforcement. You want the police to go away because you really believe that there's this systemic code of racism amongst law enforcement officers. Your ignorance is astounding, and it will be up to people like Richard and myself and the rest of you that tune into this show every day to save these people from themselves. You run scared and limit your Thanksgiving gathering in your own home to 6 people.
Screw that.
You wear a mask while you drive your car, running away from something that we know has a survivability rate of 99.8% and is going nowhere. This thing is going nowhere. It's been politicized. It's been used to drive fear into you. The elderly people that are at these assisted living facilities are protesting themselves. I would rather die from COVID-19 than die of a broken and lonely heart.
Agreed.
It's a really sad thing.
Well, and it also makes me feel like our whole way of life the last, 10, 15 years or however long, is all a lie. Right. All these elections, they were all a lie. All these, the things that the government are supposed to do for you that have been deemed successful are all a lie. And it was all given to us just a little bit to keep us quiet. But the plan was really to screw us all over in the end.
Of course.
And so it's hard to understand or hard to pick out what really is what really is the truth.
Well, if
what
you
really was meant for us to be successful.
If you have a feeling in your heart, if you have a gut feeling, if you're the guy that I talked about or the gal that I talked about yesterday, you're brushing your teeth, you're looking in the mirror, and you're saying, this is just absolutely effing crazy. I can't be seeing this. There's something wrong here.
And all the while, you have to get your ass up out of bed every day, go to work, take care of your kids, take them to soccer, take them to whatever. Well, not anymore because we can't do any of that shit.
But
you still have to live your life.
Trust your gut. You're right. There is something going on here. Even Democrats that I know are pissed off because there will be an asterisk next to this Joe Biden election forever. And it will ultimately come out. Richard, They have been blaming the Trump administration and Donald Trump of being a Russian asset himself personally for the last 4.5 years, since Hillary Clinton started with this fake phony dossier and this Russian collusion and interference and meddling in our election. The meddling and the interference is happening now by the party that accused him of this interference, and it's happening from within the borders of our own country, inside of our own political parties that are elected representatives that are supposed to be there, that we pay to do a job. And the job that they're doing right now is they're chasing money, they're chasing power, they're chasing control and compliance. They're chasing a one world order system. You have to understand that when you're looking in the mirror and you're spitting the toothpaste out, swearing at your smartphone because you're watching Newsmax or OAN or this show or Rocky Stucci or Matt Locke, or the Ops Lens Network, where you can get real commentary of actual facts that listen, we're with you, okay? Yeah, we are with you. We see it too. You are not crazy. This is really happening. Now, be ready to be blown away. Lou Dobbs was on the phone with Sidney Powell. This was not widely broadcast, so millions of you that are watching or listening to this have not heard this. This adds legitimacy to you questioning what is going on. Listen to this.
I've just gotten some stunning evidence from a first-hand witness, a high-ranking military officer who was present when Smartmatic was designed in a way that and I'm going to just read you some of these statements, if you don't mind, so I get them exactly right from the affidavit. Designed in a way that the system could change the vote of each voter without being detected. He wanted the software itself to function in such a manner that if the voter were to place their thumbprint or fingerprint on a scanner, then the thumbprint would be tied to a record of the voter's name and identity as having voted, but that voter would not be tracked to the changed vote. He made it clear that the system would have to be set up but not leave any evidence of the changed vote for a specific voter, and that there would be no evidence to show and nothing to contradict that the name or the fingerprint or thumbprint was going with a changed vote. Smartmatic agreed to create such a system and produce the software and hardware that accomplished the result for President Chavez. After the Smartmatic electoral management system was put in place, he closely observed several elections where the results were manipulated using the Smartmatic software. One such election was December 2006 when Chavez was running against Rosales. Chavez won with a landslide over Rosales, a margin of nearly 6 million votes for Chavez versus 3.7 million for Rosales.
So the software was developed in order to help dictators continue to reign in power while making it appear to Venezuelans that this was a legitimate election. And then he blew his opponent out of the water. The Smartmatic software, and so who she's referring to as he, is a high-ranking government official who I don't believe has been named yet, who has named himself, though, and given sworn testimony that's to be presented to federal courts, the Supreme Court, that are going to expose this Dominion software, which uses the Smartmatic technology in order to essentially, Richard, when you go and vote for Donald Trump, what happens is, remember how we've been told about these Dominion machines that they were not supposed to be plugged into the internet, right, to the World Wide Web, but they were supposed to be on an intranet, a server of its own, right? Which, by the way, a local network. Which, by the way, these servers are overseas in places like Germany. Why they're overseas? I was reading on Facebook today that somebody had told their kindergarten or first grade student that these servers were overseas, and the kindergartner said, "Why? Why would we ever do that?" Exactly, young brain. Continue to think for yourself. But it would take your vote, Richard, and once plugged into the internet, the machine and the software take over because they can see that Trump is winning in a landslide, right? And so then when we saw the 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning counting stop, that's when these machines were plugged in, right? And they see that Trump is beginning to really take off with this victory. And so then the Smartmatic software in these Dominion machines says, okay, They're programmed to then stop the counting, stop the tallying of votes, and then take your vote for Trump, remove your personal data from that so that it can't be tracked and you cannot later corroborate that you voted for Trump when you're approached by investigators, because they won't know who to approach because your information has been removed, right? And then your vote is taken from this Trump column and put over here into this Biden column and then retransmitted, and it's done by the millions. That's what this high-ranking official is saying.
And when all this happened on election night, they claimed that, well, we had to plug them in the internet because there was a software update.
Mm-hmm.
A scheduled software update on election night.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Listen, the sham here is just so easily detectable by you and I. Even if it's just an inconsistency or a suspicious anomaly, it's worth taking a look into. But now, a high-ranking government official who was there is saying that this is what the case is. Here, she continues.
It goes on and on. He was in the control room where multiple digital display screens were shown for results and voting. The actual voting results were fed into that room and onto the displays over an internet feed, which was connected to a sophisticated computer system created by Smartmatic. People in that room were able to see in real time whether the vote that came through the electronic voting system was in their favor or against them. If one looked at any particular screen, they could determine that the vote from any specific area or as a national total was going to be against either candidate. Persons controlling the vote tabulation computer had the ability to change the reporting of votes by moving votes from one candidate to another by using the Smartmatic software.
There it is. I mean, she's saying what I just said, and a high-ranking government official that was there who has witnessed this was present firsthand himself inside of the control room when this was happening and votes were being taken from one candidate and moved to the other, is giving sworn testimony saying that this actually occurred. Now, there has been reports of a U.S. raid in Germany, okay, where these servers were recovered from this Dominion software. There, just to be 100% transparent here, and for the sake of actual true and real journalism, there are also stories that debunk that. Okay, there are people that are independent fact checkers have said that this is likely less than true. Okay, and when I was talking to Sabrina D'Souza off the air, she's a former CIA intel officer. I asked her, is it possible that the U.S. Army would go in there and do this in Germany? She said, not without the assistance of the Germans. So the Germans would have to be a part of this raid and or give the United States Army the authority to conduct said raid. Okay, so that could have happened or it may not have happened. At which point, the congressman who said that this happened reported that over 7 million Trump votes that had gone to Biden had been recovered and that they had the software, they had the servers, and that they could prove it. Now, the Giuliani team and the Powell team are saying that they have the software. If that's the case, they also then, I think, would need the machines. I don't know for sure. But if they have the software, they can then prove what was in the servers. So they wouldn't physically need the servers from Germany. If they have access to the software, they can show how your vote, Richard, for Trump actually went to Biden. I don't know about you, but if I find out that I voted for Joe Biden, I am going to be hot, man. Really upset. And Democrats that voted for Joe Biden should be equally as upset that this democracy is under attack in such a way that is synonymous and mirrors what is going on in dictatorship countries like Venezuela, okay? In fascist and socialist communist Venezuela, we have the same voting system here. It doesn't matter if you are Republican or Democrat. At this point, it doesn't divide you from me that you supported Joe Biden when I supported Donald Trump. That doesn't divide us. What divides us right now is whether or not you are a patriot that believes in the rule of law, the United States Constitution, and the very fundamental thing that you have to do, the one thing, the most powerful thing, the thing that so much blood has been shed to protect is your right to vote. And if you don't believe that to be sacred, that is a big separation between you and I. You, my friend, should then take your ass to Venezuela, okay, if that's what you really want. if you really need the government to look after you, and if you really need to fall to your knees and look for the government to send you your check on the first of every month, budget it, tell you how you can spend it, who you can hang out with, how many people at a time, where to go for Thanksgiving dinner, and that you're not allowed to go see your grandmother, then you, my friend, are a straight up fascist communist. All right? That's what the separation is between me and other people. At this point, like I said, I don't care who you voted for because, damn it, that is what makes our country great. And if Joe Biden won this thing, election, hands down, fair and square, beat Donald Trump, which we all know now that he did not. There's no way that he could have. The guy never campaigned, and the reason that he didn't is because he didn't have to. They had the ace of spades in their back pocket. This was their trump card, excuse the pun. They knew that they had this. They knew that they had the final win, Richard. They knew they had it. He didn't have to campaign. He could maintain his virtue signaling little circles, summoning the mothership, having 35 people there, half of which were his campaign staffers, because he knew that he didn't need them.
Well, and we talk together about being a team, right? And we're all one big team. And at this point, I agree with you that it doesn't matter who we voted for. What should be the discussion is how the election was won or lost. It doesn't matter what side you're on. But I maybe I'm mimicking your words, but because I am part of this team that we call America, if Joe Biden legitimately won this election, then all right. Then we need to figure out how to tighten up our effing bootstraps and continue on with our lives and go forward for the next 4 years. Then we'll try again. But the fact that our whole way of life, the way that we've thought as a people, that we're united, even though we have different beliefs about how to run our government, is a complete bullshit scam.
Truth bell, truth bell, truth bell, truth bell. Okay.
Well, but I'm saying it's extremely infuriating. And so these discussions and these Antifa assholes and, all these people who are in the same place, but they're fighting against each other, when really what the problem is that none of us are right. We all got screwed.
Yeah.
And so what are we fighting about?
That's
We're fighting
right.
because we don't like a guy that gets spray tan, even though he's the best thing that's happened to this country in years.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit that he gets a spray tan? Who cares that he grabs some chick by the pussy? That's a whole different discussion, for Christ's sake.
Watch your mouth.
But we need to figure out how we're going to be safe, how we're going to defend this country, how we're going to take care of the weak, the less fortunate, our elderly people, how our kids are going to grow up and not be complete assholes with blue hair and too tight of girls' t-shirt, Powerpuff shirts on, all that bullshit. I want my kids to leave this house and be contributing members of our society, not some asshole who's going to go stomp and burn our American flag because they don't like somebody in office. Don't be a pussy. Do something for yourself and for this country instead of burn it down. If I didn't have a hat on, you could see the vein.
I can hear the vein and I can hear the passion, and you're speaking with the same passion that our listeners are feeling when they're, again, spitting out the toothpaste. I just keep bringing myself back to that because the reason why, and you're probably getting tired of this picture that I paint, but that's when I do most of my thinking. I wake up in the morning and I turn on the news, whatever station it might be, because I listen to all of them. I really do, because I need to know what the narrative is from every single angle on this stuff so that I can come on here and dig beyond the headlines throughout the day. I really do a lot of digging. I do. I spend a lot of time on this. And it all starts in the morning when I wake up and say, all right, what line of shit are they feeding me now? And that's when it all happens. The news cycle starts right away in the morning, and it never stops. It never, ever stops. But you don't see Sidney Powell on there as she continued with Lou Dobbs.
So here's the other kicker. When the Smartmatic machines are, when somebody's losing, like, for example, when Maduro and his supporters realized the size of the other guy's lead, they were worried that they were in crisis mode and would lose the election. The Smartmatics machines used for voting in each state were connected to the Internet. reported their information over the internet to the Caracas Control Center real time, so the decision was made to reset the entire system. Maduro's and his supporters ordered the network controllers to take the internet itself offline in practically all parts in Venezuela to change the results. It took the voting operators approximately 2 hours to make the adjustments in the vote from Radonsky to Maduro. Then when they turned the internet back on and the online reporting was up and running again, they checked each screen state by state to be certain they could see each vote was changed in favor of Maduro. So here's the other kick.
Oops, sorry about that. There it is. What we just talked about. Remember the software update? Yeah, it wasn't a software update. It was an update to your vote. It was a change in your vote. It was the machines were plugged into the internet. They detected that Trump was ahead. The machines shut down. They did the update, which is actually the fix, when the fix was in. Yeah. Okay?
Scam.
That's when the steal happened. Okay? So hashtag stop the steal it's too late. Stop the steal should have been a thing way beforehand. And here's the other thing. If the CIA had knowledge of this, which I believe they did, and Sidney Powell is going to, I've got another clip from her addressing that specifically. If the CIA knew about this, or if this particular government official that knew about this, that is now coming forward with a sworn affidavit, knew about this then, why are we talking about it now? Were they saying, oh, there's no way that they're actually going to use this? I mean, the machines were there. The Dominion software was in place. The Smartmatic software was in place. This company has been known by our government officials to have stolen elections or in other countries, okay? And even the nutbag Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, a total travesty to politics and representation, acknowledged in a written letter to Congress or to the Senate, whatever it was, that this couldn't be used. We couldn't use this because it wasn't fair. But now it's too little too late, maybe? I mean, I really hope not. But listen, what date does the election get certified by the Electoral College? December 14th? Is that what the date?
I think.
Okay. And we're less than 30 days away from that. So now we've talked about this potential of a maybe having two presidents at one time. We've talked about the possibility of a constitutional crisis, at which point neither Donald Trump or Joe Biden would be inaugurated on January 20th. And so then at that point, Nancy Pelosi, who's the Speaker of the House, takes over, or Congress then decides who the winner of the election is. And as we've already determined, that would be Donald Trump, because 37 states are represented by Republicans, and each state only gets one vote. I want to go finally to this before we run out of time and let you hear what Sidney Powell said about the CIA and their knowledge of all of this.
Well, other than the fact there's no way all this was happening around the world without the CIA knowing about it. I mean, that's just logic. This affidavit also explains it's been used to change election results all over the world. And it's all Venezuelan and Cuban and essentially communist money that's been doing this. It's a foreign-owned company, as you mentioned earlier. The president of it is Mr. Neppinger, who is on Biden's very presumptuous and immediately failing transition team. And people have been reporting this to our government for several years, including Democrats, and nobody's done a damn thing about it, Lou. I can't even express how furious I am over this.
You're not alone, Sidney, because I am absolutely furious also. And here's what I will say, okay? Before I give you your final word today, Richard, here's what I would like to really say. If you have friends that voted for Joe Biden, do not let that be the separation between you. Do not let that be the separation, because they are Americans who believe in a democracy, but you have to have the conversation, and do not apologize. Do not back down when you demand that we know the truth as Americans. Do not allow somebody to tell you that Joe Biden won fair and square when we have evidence like this, when we have anomalies and verified, validated inconsistencies of a stolen election. We now have a duty as Americans, as the only superpower left in the entire world, the greatest nation on the face of the planet, hands down, without dispute, in the history of the globe. We have to come together as Americans. We have to, as Republicans, Democrats, Biden, or Trumpers. You have to come together, and you have to vow, I am not going to allow communist radicals to steal elections and overtake this country, not without a fight. And you have to be willing to stand up and fight, physically fight. if that's what it takes. But do not allow the conversation to happen. Not on your timeline, not in your news feed, not on your social media, not in person, not anywhere, no way, no how should you ever accept somebody telling you that this thing was won fair and square. Richard, your final words. We got to go.
Well, you stole it from me. Don't ever. We need to come together. Don't let Trump or Biden divide us.
Get over to the PCRadioshow.com and check out the new store. Get yourself the Antifa, the new ISIS for Pussies shirt. Until tomorrow at 5 o'clock, here's what's up to it. Here's what's down to it. Here's to any way you can get to it. Here's to those that don't do it. May they be dragged to it, tied to it, or forced to it. And here's to us who do it, because we're the ones that's used to it. Remember to fly low and avoid that radar. One day they're going to come for the car, and when they do, Richard, save the radar!